Welcome to another Wellness Wednesday. Today I wanted to take some time and talk about functional movements. It is something that is extremely important outside of fitness, but just to help us live our lives more independently for longer. When we think about functional fitness, it does have a function in our everyday life. So if we think about some of our fundamental functional movements, we think of squats, deadlifts, and an overhead press. So those three things can relate to many things in our normal life. So if we're thinking about a squat, where we're squatting down and then standing ourselves back up, that is exactly what we do when we go to sit in a chair and stand back up, or anything that resembles that movement of sitting down, standing back up. When we think of deadlifts, it is the same idea of picking something up off the ground and standing back up. When we think of a shoulder press, it is the same thing as putting something above our head. As we practice those things or put those into our plan to exercise, we become more efficient at those. And the more efficient we are, that also helps us to live a longer and more fulfilled life. One of the ways that a lot of people get injured is when they're trying to pick heavy things up off the ground and not doing so properly. It is an easy way to set yourself up for some back pain, some soreness. So I wanted to walk through how to set ourselves up properly and how to lift something up off the ground without injuring ourselves. So when we want to set up to pick something up off the ground, we want to make sure that we're hinging at our hips. This is going to be a big driver of this movement. We're going to press those hips back, slightly bend in our knees, and then depending on how far down the object is for us to pick up, so for a taller object, I'd only have to be here. But to reach down, for this one, I am going to have to drop those hips a little bit to pick up this smaller object. And so as I stand up, I want to make sure that the first movement is going to be from my legs and not from my back. So as I pick this up, I'm really using those legs. And then as that object gets above my knees, I start to stand up and utilize those back muscles. So we want to make sure that as we're picking things up, we want to try and think about using our bigger muscle groups before we use those smaller muscle groups. So our legs and our hips are going to have muscles attached to those that are a lot bigger and can produce more force than those muscles that are attached here in our back. So again, we want to hinge those hips back, lowering down to pick up our object, and then as we pick that up, really focusing on those legs, and then standing up nice and tall with our chest. And this can also translate to things like shoveling snow. When we go to pick up that snow, it can, especially when it's wet, it can be very heavy. And if we try to just push those hips back and only use our back, we can get very sore and can potentially move things out of place. So when you do that, the big thing is that as we go to shovel, we want to make sure that we're bending those knees so we can utilize those bigger muscle groups to help us lift that heavier load.